Hey there, I'm Caden Rains, and welcome to my basement. Today we're looking at the first of the Lego Ninjago City Modular sets, and it's a big one, which is why the camera can't get it all just yet, but we'll take a look at that in a second. There are 4 or 5 of these out right now, and I have 3 of them. That's probably what I'm going to stay at just for the amount of space I have, but I've been wanting to put this one together for a while. It came out with the Lego Ninjago movie, which I have thoughts about. I'm not like a big Ninjago fan by any means. I have some of them, mostly because I do like ninja stuff in general. So I will use what little I know about Ninjago to reference things in this build and talk about it. But on the whole, I'm just going to speak about it as a build with an Asian flair, more or less, and we'll go from there. So before we get into the build itself and I go in and start moving the camera to look at everything, let's take a look at the minifigs this comes with. So if you're familiar with Ninjago, you might know some of these characters better than I do, but here we go. So from left to right on the front row, we've got Kai, and this is Jet, because he's being real helpful right now. You're just gonna hang there? Okay, well, whatever. All right, so let's start that again. From left to right on the front row, we've got Kai, who's the Red Ranger of the Ninjagos or series, or at least was. I think they've shifted that in the more recent seasons. Again, not an avid watcher. We've got Jamanikai Villager, Sally, Ivy Walker, Conrad, Severin Black, Mother Doomsday, which is an interesting name. He appears to be the comic book guy, but so maybe it's like a I don't know, Mother Box kind of reference from DC. Tommy, who just appears to be a green ninja fan. We've got Guy in his pink shirt or jacket. Juno, Lloyd, and Lloyd also comes with his ninja outfit and a clear head, so that's technically another minifigure. Similar to that, there's actually 2 more that are part of the build, but we'll get to that when we get to it. We've got Masako the MILF, then Jay the Blue Ninja, a Shark Army Gunner, because this was from the movie. I don't know, maybe that was in the show too, but that's what one of the, henchmen were, the Shark Army. And then Officer Noonan over here. In some ways, I'm most disappointed with Noonan because she doesn't have one of the hat pieces that has hair. I would assume that maybe this was right before they started doing that with the police cap. I know they make it now, and I might try to hunt an extra one down, but she's the only one without hair that I feel like should have hair. Technically, this guy could have some hair, and as could this guy, but whatever. On the whole, I think these minifigs are really good. I like some of the references we get, like Mother Doomsday has a Galador reference, which there's another one in this build, and I was not expecting that. For those who don't know, Galador was a Nick show that with a heavy Lego tie-in back in like the 90s or maybe the really early 2000s, but I think it was the 90s, about a kid and a bunch of aliens who could swap their limbs around. And the Lego figures, they weren't Technic, but they had like the clip-in pegs kind of going for them for their limbs. And I don't know, I never got into the show, and I didn't find out till later there was even Legos for it, but I don't have any. And the one time I had a chance to buy a bunch of them cheap, I was like, I would just be doing it for the giggles, just because I'm glad I don't have them. Like if they fell in my lap, that's one thing, but to spend actual money on them, that's another. But beyond that, beyond the references, I just think a lot of the prints are good. I know they're not all unique. Lloyd and his mom and Juno here, I know, are almost entirely made up of pieces that we've seen in other sets. But even with that, almost every figure has printing on every piece. Of all of the full-size minifigs, only 4 of them, Noonan, Misako, Juno, and Guy, don't have printing on their legs. And you know me, I love me some leg printing. So that goes a long way for me. The 2 mini legs or short legs figures, Sally and Tommy, also don't have leg printing, but again, you don't see that on the short legs that often, so it doesn't really bother me. Other than that, I just think it's a pretty good collection for what you're getting in here. So I have no real complaints. Like I said, her hat would be nice if it was the one with the hair. And this is a personal gripe, but I've always thought this secondary hair for Kai is just stupid looking. It's not really a problem. I have some of the older Kais with hair that's not so stupid, but that it is what it is. So maybe some of these characters are fan favorites from the show. I know they weren't all in the movie, but whatever. So those are the minifigs. Like I said, there's technically 2 others, but they're not characters, so we'll get to them in a minute. But now that we've looked at the minifigs, let's take a look at the set itself. So counting the very top spire, or tower, the set is just about 2 feet tall, and it's a pretty impressive build. It's also technically a modular. It's got the base plate and the connectors on the side, and that makes sense because every Ninjago City set that's come out in this style is designed on the same base plate with connectors style. So whether you're connecting it to them, as I will be, to 2 of them in fact, or to the other modulars, it'll work because that's it. They are modulars. So now that we've gotten a look at the minifigs and the general outside, we'll go level by level and then find a place in the city for it. So let's start with the first level and see what's going on there. So here's the first level of the Ninjago City build, originally from the movie, on its own. So it's got a dark gray base plate, mostly black plates on top of that, with then a bunch of these translucent blue tiles over that. And then we've got the base of what will be the rest of the quote-unquote city. It also is where we store the secondary build or side build, which is this little fishing boat. And it doesn't really look like a fishing boat, but for the size, I think that's what it's supposed to be. We've got the Conrad character, the one with the blue robe, who is shown by this stall with the fish and the crabs in it, as well as an oar or a fishing spear is his accessory. So I'm going to go with that being that. Now this is an interesting build because it is very open, with the overall build being more focused on the exterior details than we normally get. Out of 4,867 pieces, a lot of that is more focused on the exterior than we get in many other builds. So it'll be an interesting comparison when we get them on the table next to some of these other modulars. But we can see back here something that will connect up to the other parts of the build. That's going to be an elevator section here, and we'll see that on the second layers where I think it's stuck right now. But back here, we've also, going back to the crab and fish hut, this awning was a really interesting build because that's 19 crowbars on a pole. Well, 2 poles, I guess, but that's the first time I've ever seen that done with crowbars, so I think that's pretty clever. We've also got this little, I don't know, storage shed here with another character, as far as I'm aware, who was a little robot named Sweep. And there's a schematic in there that you can't really see at the moment, but we can take that off, so now we can. So there's his little hut. I'm assuming because his name is Sweep and he's a robot that he's like the custodian kind of situation, but I don't know. Tell me down below if I have completely misconstrued Sweep the Ninjago character, or if Sweep the Ninjago character even exists anymore. I kind of doubt he does. Moving off to the side and back to the front, or at least one of the fronts. This is a corner build, so you got two fronts. We've got a payphone down here, and for those of you in the younger demographic, payphones were this thing we used to have when cell phones didn't rule our lives. There's also this neat sticker that maybe it's an ad for something in the show. I'm sorry, but it does have that Japanese flair, and I like it. Throughout, we also have more of the tile with a runoff section for water. There's a lot of foliage, and you'll see frogs throughout. In fact, two of the characters even have frogs as part of their instructions. Both Sally and the villager carry frogs, and then they're just sort of around. So if that's important to the Ninjago lore, let me know, because what little I've seen of it, there were never frogs involved. There are a lot of snakes, but no frogs. Then at the corner, we've got this loudspeaker system with a silver crab. Crabs are also kind of throughout here. We saw Severin Black, the character, was holding a crab, and then because he, I would assume, runs the crab restaurant that we're going to look at in a minute. Throughout, we've also got fake kanji on several signs, including some translucent ones down there, older one, this little bridge that leads to the other side. So it's a neat little base, but because it is the base, the undercity, as it were, it kind of makes sense why this isn't super flashy or anything. There's this tea room, which is got this neat tiger sticker. There's a lot of stickers, by the way. If you see printing, it's a sticker. There's almost nothing really printed in here outside of the minifigs. So there's this tea room, and then there's a little, I guess it's supposed to be a bedroom. It looks like a tatami mat, but it's got a dresser and what looks like what are supposed to be pillows there, with a Good Morning Ninjago TV playing. So it's somebody's apartment. I don't know who it's supposed to be, but it's there. Maybe it's supposed to be Lloyd and his mom's. There's a room higher up on this same part of the build that's definitely supposed to be theirs from the movie, but I don't really think the whole building is, because there's a section on the second level that definitely isn't part of their apartment that's right above this, so whatever. But that's the base of the build. Again, it's the lower end of the city. It's really not where the hustle and bustle is. So if you're looking at this, and outside of a couple neat parts like the awning made of crowbars and the way they did the water and stuff, you're like, well, that's not very impressive, which it is still impressive. It's just not flashy. Well, then let's get the first level of the city proper and go from there. All right, so here we have the second level of the city back on top. And this is the level we get much more detail on some stuff and where we start getting some play features built in. Now, like I said, it's also very open in the back, and that's fine as long as the pieces are used wisely and the build looks good. I don't mind open space, especially since in my city I do want like a river section, so having all the Ninjago sets built kind of on top of water actually works pretty well for me. If it messes with your ideas of a city, I'm sorry, but I like it. So let's go. So there's not really much on the back here. Now, these two parts are part of the play features. We'll get to those in a minute. But let's look at the various storefronts and stuff. So we've got this comic shop. I really think that the way they spelled comics is pretty clever. The O is actually the cat ears from Black Panther, but white. And then the rest of it's just letters. The one type of printing really on any piece here are these 1x1 plates that have this black printing on the side. So that's clever, I guess. But this set did hit me with the unfortunate brittle brown, because if we look inside, if the lighting wants to behave, you can see that those are supposed to be comic book stands or maybe action figure stands based on what's on them. I'll grab one here. Yeah, action figure, now that I grab them again. However, and again, there's 8 of these. Some of them are duplicates, but they're supposed to be in those hinges there, but all the hinges broke as soon as I put them in there. So that brittle brown is going to have to be replaced. It's unfortunate, but this set is a couple years old, and that's, for whatever reason in the formula, that's what happens. But there's, nerdy stuff in here. There's actually a reference to the first Lego movie with the Believe poster. And then, I don't know, there's another frog. There's what looks like the Tesseract from Marvel, but I don't think that's what it's technically going to be. Some kind of gun, and it's just lighting and stuff. More action figures on the side. It's a very small part of the build, but it's neat. Mother Doomsday, the guy with the Galador shirt, is shown to be running this in some of the instructions and on the box, which makes sense, I suppose. But I may give it to Comic Book Guy from The Simpsons because I've got that minifig and I want a good place for him. Or at least they can be arguing. There's an ATM here, and this is one of the play features. So you might notice that there's a little opening towards the bottom there. And if I reach back here and push through, the money, well, it's supposed to come all the way out, but yeah. So and something came off in the back. So it's not perfect, but it's a neat little feature. And then you can just take off the front to, there we go, to reload it. I'll have to check if maybe it's not tight enough on the rubber band that kind of keeps that in place, to see if maybe that's why it didn't want to come out all the way. I'm not sure, besides what I just had to do, why this comes down, if there's another purpose. Maybe you could play, if you play with your Legos, if you could do like someone having a fight and pushing off there. It's the only one that does that, but I think it primarily does that so you can pull the ATM off. Next up, we've got the crab restaurant, and I think this is a really neat build as well. I actually didn't recognize this as a crab until I got it all the way on and noticed, oh, those are pinchers and so on. But I like the yellow gold base. You've got these translucent orange pieces all around and the hanging lanterns. And then they took 2 of these 2x1x5 clear pieces and put a bunch of round tiles in there, or tiles in there, and to make that pattern. And they do that at both corners. Inside is, it's a restaurant. That door, there's a couple of these throughout, these panels with that paper printing, but this is one of the few that doesn't open. It's just a window. But it's still neat. We've got like a little seating area up front, and then the crab cooker. So if we open this, we've got a yellow uncooked crab, and by closing it and turning this bit on the back, now it's a cooked crab, or at least what I assume is the cooked one. The proprietor, the Severin Black character, is holding one of the sandy ones. So I kind of assumed that'd be a cooked one, but I don't know. It's neat. Like, I'm not going to show it off with excitement, but I think it's a neat little thing they added in. So that's the crab restaurant. And the final bit is on the back side of the elevator. We've got movie posters. And so that's the second Galador one. I'm actually going to assume, I didn't look it up, but that's the main character and what I assume is his love interest. I'm sorry if a show from 20 some years ago isn't the forefront of my mind, but there's more than just this one. By opening this little door hinge right here and pushing on this sign, we can get out the other ones, where we've got a Japanese quote-unquote version of the poster from the original movie theater set, which was also this deconstructor monster. We've got a Lone Samurai kind of spoof, and then just a car ad, which is still apropos for movie theaters because they just play ads for non-movies in front of their stuff nowadays. But you can just you can just put them back in there, close the door, and let it be. I'm going to let the Galador one be in there just because I think it's funny. Again, I'm not telling you to go out and watch old Galador or hunt down those sets, but I think it's funny that there's just multiple references to it in this series, or in this set. On the whole, though, that's the first 2 floors of this build. So let's get on the next build. Let's get the next floor and go from there. All right, so here is the 3rd floor of this build. This is usually about the top height we reach with most modulars. And but we've got one more after this, so don't go anywhere too fast. This is probably the least... Oh, that tree is taking my window. This is probably the least occupied level, and it doesn't have a railing like the first 2. So, I don't know, you have to climb up the little ladders and stuff that are spread around it, like this back here, in order to get anywhere, or just take this elevator. There's no walking around outside. But the overall build, we've got this section of this yellow side build here. There's nothing in it. Like the inside isn't even inside. But it just has these roots for a tree, which again, I don't remember being in the movie. So I guess maybe that either that's just something from the show, which it's nice. It's a nice little like Sakura tree build, but it's either just from the show or just for show. Just for show, not from the show. But I like it, but it does stick out. It is on a Technic pin, like it uses an arm from like a leg from the Construction figures. So you can pose it so it's less likely to run into stuff. But it's neat, it's pretty, but it does mean you've got this whole room, as small as it is, that has nothing going on. The main part of this level that's stuff is, I guess it's some kind of accessory shop. What's her name? Juno, the Juno minifig is the one that's shown like running this part, at least on the box. Or at least she's in it. But I'm going to call this like the accessory shop, because it's mostly just stuff that we've got in here. And this is also where the 2 additional minifigs are. They're both Sensei Wu minifigs, except they don't have faces or beards. Yeah, there they go. So they're mannequins, and I kind of wish they had just made a mannequin minifig, but there's no unique pics. There's no unique prints for either of them. They're the same body. They just have different hats, basically, headwear, whatever word you want to use for it. So I either wish they had printed like mannequins, or they had just not done that, and then maybe put more detail into some of the other figs or something. I don't know. But, you know, we've got a little skateboard, cell phones. We've got an Imtron reference, which is fun. It's old space. Bunch of hats, perfume, cups. I don't know. It just looks like that's gold on there. I think maybe it's supposed to be cloth, because this is cloth, the ninja mask, but whatever. I appreciate the build of the front window and how it has this curve to it. So that's pretty neat. It's a small section of the build, but I think it looks nice, and you know, it adds a different color than you've got for most of the other, this light blue. So while it's, I don't know, it's not my favorite part, but there's nothing wrong with it. So anyway, let's put on the very top level and go from there. So here is the top level, or the roof, of the Ninjago City build. It involves mostly the sushi bar section, which as a sushi connoisseur, I enjoy having. Although, ironically, in order to get the sushi stuff that's officially for this build, you had to pick up the CMF series from this movie. I have it. I don't have it out right now, but it's kind of silly that they put the whole restaurant in there and didn't include the sushi chef. But whatever. This is also one of the other play features where you've got the sushi. The sushi bar has the rotating track, which I've actually never been to one of these, and it doesn't work perfectly, unfortunately. But it's interesting. It's neat that it's there. I kind of wish it worked a little better. But there's that. There's this interesting tower, which, like the shop below it, adds a hit of color that we don't get a lot more of throughout the set. However, I think it's kind of funny because for the restaurant, this is also the bathroom. We can pop that off there. So we got a toilet, we got a sink, we've even got an air freshener. And it's just like, and it's just funny because you couldn't have a more conspicuous place to have the bathroom. It's just like, you might as well have a porta potty right there. Or a porta john if you're from other places. But I just think it's funny. They decided, oh, we need a bathroom somewhere in this set. Let's put it directly next to the fish. Speaking of fish or aquatic creatures, we've got two builds over here that are part of the sushi decoration. One is the squid, which because they have it angled on the side as you're building it, I didn't realize at first it was supposed to be a squid. I thought it was some really weird fish, but it's a squid. And then a puffer fish, which I think is funny because if you cut puffer fish the wrong way, the sushi will kill you. And I also thought it was like some kind of deep sea mine when I was building it at first. And I still think it looks like that, but I know that's not what it's supposed to be. Over here, we've also got the final part of the side building. And this is what's supposed to be Lloyd and his mom's apartment, although it is much smaller than it was in the movie. They did not have bunk beds in the movie. They had a full apartment. And it's really hard to see, but for Masako, she's got some kind of like Bruce Lee wannabe next to her bed on top, and the lower bed has the family photo with Garmadon. So I think that's kind of funny. That's how you know it's their apartment. There's a little microwave, a TV, and then just furniture just right up against each other. I know they have very little space in this side building, but it's just like, you shouldn't have even made it their apartment. You didn't need their apartment. But anyway, I just thought that was kind of funny. And, that's that. Looking at the back side, though, I can finally show you that elevator. And so it does connect all the way down. However, at each place where the different levels meet, it's not as flush as you'd want it to be, like in a physics sense. So when you move this, sometimes it'll get caught. It's actually behaving today, but going up, there we go. So going up, you'll hit these points between levels that are just not as easy to do. But it's not terrible. It's not like it's unusable, but that's your main way of reaching that sushi restaurant and some of the other levels. Like, to get from the base level, you have to take this to this first iron grate, really. And then there's the second one, and so on and so forth. But overall, that is the first Lego Ninjago City. I really do like it. I've had a good time building it. It took longer than I expected based on other modulars. And that is just because the exterior has so much detail. And even the inside does too. They cram a lot into a little bit of space for each level. But for the most part, I think it works well. The only room that I didn't really come away happy with is the little apartment. And so, like I said, I think they just shouldn't have made it in their apartment. I don't think they made apartments for any of the other ninjas in the other sets. Maybe I'll discover I'm wrong about that, but we'll see. But regardless, now that we've looked at it and seen what everything is involved, let's find a place in the city for it and take it there. So here, among our mismatched base plates that are serving as space fillers for now, is where we're going to have the Ninjago City sets. This first one is going to be a corner, and then the other two I have, which are the gardens and the docks, are going to form an L around this massive base plate in the back. And that base plate will eventually have something really tall on it, but that's a long-term plan, so I'm not going to go into that right now. But this is also going to serve as the corner between the neighborhood and the city proper. So that is where that's going to sit for now. And after I put the next two together, it'll start looking more, I don't know, more proper instead of this weird little outcropping that doesn't really connect to anything. But it will. Next to it is going to be where I put some of the animal characters, the Sonic, the Animal Crossing, and so on, and then we'll continue with the neighborhood once I finalize what I'm going to do with some of the builds there. But on the whole, I'm pretty happy with the way this looks. It's very different from a lot of the other builds we've got on the table, and other builds in general, even other Ninjago stuff. A lot of other Ninjago stuff is ancient looking, like it goes into ancient Japanese style, more or less. Sometimes other inspirations, but that's the main thing. While this has kind of that aesthetic, but then mixed with more modern and even futuristic stuff here and there. And I really like that. I think it's a good blend, and it's going to look really great once I get the other two builds connected to it. So, let me know down below if you've got this set, if you like it, if you wish you had gotten it, if you didn't, or if you think this is just gaudy and doesn't match what's going on to the left and right of it. But either way, I hope you had a good time in my basement today, and I'll see you in the next one.